Well, good morning, everybody. How are you? Welcome to church this morning. The topic today involves my horse and it involves May, and I had planned for it to be a nice warm morning, but didn't work out all that well. But tomorrow is May Day, or May Day, according to my horse. So I thought we would take the opportunity to talk about renewal and what spring brings for us physically in nature, as well as what it can do for us when we think about it spiritually. It reminds us, for starters, that we are not getting older. We are just renewing ourselves. Now, physically, it's amazing how much our body renews itself. I think they say that after 7 years, every cell in your body has replaced itself, and so you have a new body. It's red blood cells are every 3 or 4 months, and skin cells every 3 to 4 weeks, that kind of thing. And I think that we can forget sometimes how important it is to have spiritual renewal. And we talk about in Unity that we come to church for that spiritual food, and it might be meditation, or it might be some other spiritual practice for you, but we keep coming back because it's that renewed energy and that new infusion of spiritual food. And I think it's a little bit like food, physical food, if you will, where you eat a big lunch and you think, I will never, ever, ever eat again. But then somehow come dinner time, you're trying to decide between Italian and Mexican. Same thing with spirit. And I never really thought that much about spring before I had a horse. But I've had Chuco, my horse, for about 5 years now. And he's really given me some amazing insights. You know how we talk about how you can get spiritual lessons and guideposts from various things in life, whether it's something you hear on the radio, or maybe something a friend says to you, or just the way that events happen in your life to point you in a direction. Well, I have found that my horse Chuco has been an amazing spiritual teacher. And you know what they say, when the student is ready, the horse appears. So today, I thought I would share with you 3 of the lessons that I've learned from my spiritual guide, Chuco. First one is, don't worry about the flies. That's why you have a tail. With the warmer temperature of spring, one thing that we see a lot of is horses, when they're out in their pastures, just swishing their tails. Their day's not bothered. They continue to eat, they continue to graze, to walk around, but their tail just moving, swishing those flies away. What you don't see is you don't see a horse asking, why me? Why do I have to deal with these flies? Or saying, this is so unfair. Or if it weren't for the flies, I could be the horse I was meant to be. Without these, I'd be a better horse. That's human stuff, isn't it? He doesn't blow this stuff out of proportion, perhaps because the horse intuitively knows that he has got all the tools that he needs to deal with the flies. He's got a mane to keep them off of his neck. He's got a forelock, or bangs, as my mother used to call them, to keep the flies off of his face. You knew that one was coming. And he's got the tail to keep them off of his hind end. And no, that is not someone you know if you think you recognize someone there. Maybe we should look at our annoyances in life the same way that a horse looks at flies. Do we ever blow things out of proportion occasionally? Maybe to-do lists that are too long, or spouses or friends or coworkers who push your buttons. Maybe your husband drives 5 miles an hour below the speed limit in the passing lane during rush hour when you're late. Things like that. But one thing the horse does not do, he does not get everybody else's opinion on what he should do about the flies, or what he needs to do to handle them. He just handles them. And there could be different kinds of flies. Maybe it's in one pasture house flies or fruit flies, and then another one, it could be horse flies or it could be bees. There's an insect that has the power to hurt you if you don't handle it appropriately. But the horse, it doesn't matter. The remedy's the same. It's that tail swishing that still does not upset him. Most of the time, he doesn't even miss a blade of grass. So it seems pretty obvious to the horse that the flies aren't unfair or unexpected because he came with the tool that he needs to manage it, that tail. And as we sit here in church, it's easy to really feel and know the mantra, nothing can disturb the calm peace of my soul. But somehow, when you're at work, it's not easy to remember that it's not, nothing can disturb the calm peace of my soul except the guy who heats up fish for lunch every single day in the cubicle next to me. And it's so hard to stay connected with spirit when you're feeling annoyed. You know, when all you can focus on is if she says that one more time. But it's important for us to remember that we too have a tail. And you may be looking behind you thinking, no, as a matter of fact, I don't. But ours just looks a little bit different than the horse's does. Our tail is our mind and our ability to reframe and reconnect with spirit when things are bothering us, when we do have those annoyances. And maybe the way to do that the best is to have a visualization that's just ready to go for those moments when you feel like you cannot listen to your mother-in-law tell you how to raise your child one more time. One thing I like to think about, we've talked about in Unity how we are all made of the same stuff. We all have divinity, and we are all human, as though we are one big ocean, and each of us is simply a drop of the ocean that's made of the same stuff. Well, if we take that a little further and we imagine that we are out in the middle of the ocean, but now there's a lighthouse, and we are standing on the deck of that lighthouse, and all of life's challenges and annoyances can be swirling around us. Now, sometimes it's calm around the lighthouse, and sometimes it's stormy, and the winds are high, and the sea is high. But one thing you notice is that the water goes around the lighthouse. It doesn't shake the lighthouse from its foundation. The lighthouse doesn't move at all. And you're not worried about it. A lighthouse isn't going to drown. A lighthouse isn't going to be destroyed because it is built to sustain the winds of change and whatever the sea and the weather may bring. Now, if you're on the deck of this lighthouse and you do get really scared where the storm's really bad and you're afraid you're going to get swept up in the challenges, there is something you can do metaphysically and physically if you're on the deck of the lighthouse, and that's to go within. Because it's going within that is your safe place. And if you can imagine yourself as safe as can possibly be inside that lighthouse, it doesn't matter what is swirling around you because you know that you are centered and you have reconnected with spirit. And when you're looking for that place to bring yourself back to, that quiet, still spot, also remember you're not on your own. If you look around you, and I mean in here, to your left and to your right, the world is so full of people who are willing to help you. Even Chuko, he's got a mom who will put a fly sheet on him when the flies get too bad, even though he thinks he looks like he's wearing a dress. I tell him it's for his own good. So there are lots of tools for us to use when things crop up that we find challenging in life, whether it's a fly sheet or whether it's our tail. So lesson number 2 from Chuko is don't leave the herd just because it's raining. Now, true to form, we've seen a pretty fair share of April showers this month, and rain can be wonderful, but it's funny when you watch your horse and you watch your horse in the herd with his friends, how differently horses and humans approach rain. Now, when it starts to rain, first thing we do usually is run for cover. Oh no, it's raining. And we have these special hats that we wear and these special coats and boots. And then we even have these devices that we open up over our heads to make sure that rain doesn't touch us. And then if we're going somewhere, we look in the mirror because we don't want it to show that rain has been in our hair or messed up our makeup. So basically we do everything to avoid the rain, and then we want to make sure that nobody has any idea that we were ever in the rain. Horses don't do that. In fact, it's the other day, I went out to the pasture. I said, hey guys, you want to come in? Nope. Happy as can be. And that's the thing. Horses, they take the rain as it comes. It's kind of like the flies. They know that it's part of it, and they also know that rain isn't permanent. No matter how badly it's storming, it will always be sunny again. Now, it may not leave things exactly the same way, depending on the winds and the storm, but what you do know is the sun will shine again. And horses are herd animals, so they are predisposed to always be with their friends. Horses typically don't like to be alone. And I think it's interesting when we look at it metaphorically that when people have what they consider to be rainy days or bad things or dark clouds in their lives, they tend to leave the herd. You ever had the experience of seeing somebody and everything in your life, you're just having one of those weeks or months or days where nothing's good and somebody says, hey, how are you? Oh, I'm great. How are you? Why is it that we don't want people to know that we've been in the rain? Well, we've all been there. Horses, they buddy up. They know that that's where a lot of the strength comes from, is hanging out with their friends. And if you've ever had a friend who has been tremendously helpful to you, maybe somebody who is always listening to you, is always providing advice, who you can always call, and you think, wow, this person's wonderful. And then you want to give back to that person, so you say, so enough about me. What's going on with you? Oh, I'm good. I'm fine. And they just never really share with you. You ever had that experience where you feel like you're taking more than you're giving, and it's not because you're not willing? It makes you feel bad, doesn't it? Makes you feel like you want to give back. And so if it's easier for you to think of you helping that person by allowing them to help you, great. But you got to let people in because it helps them as well, and it helps us get through the rainy times. And when it does rain, it also may be God's way of telling us that it's time to renew. It's time to wash something away from our old selves that we don't need. Maybe some old ways of thinking. And maybe it's time to plant some new seeds that serve us better. It could be that it's time for a new chapter in your life after the end of a relationship or a job. Could be that the purpose is actually to renew relationships with your herd. So whatever the message is, I think we should take a page out of Chuko's book, not run away from the rain, because it's going to catch us. So we may as well just enjoy the refreshing renewal that it brings. And we have one more lesson today. Sometimes a roll in the dirt is better than a roll in the hay. Now, granted, Chuko's a gelding, so he's always looking for positive ways to reframe this. But you ever have a super itchy spot on your back and you can't reach it and it's driving you absolutely crazy, but finally, if you get it, it just feels like water in a desert. It's amazing. Well, horses have that problem too, but imagine if you were a horse. You don't have arms, you can't scratch your back, but they figured out a way to use the tools they were given. Oops, that was a rain slide. That's what I meant. But yeah, the scuba horse enjoys the rain. So that's how you scratch your back in the world of a horse. Although actually the back scratching doesn't occur all the time. Usually it's right after you give your horse a bath. And then they find the biggest area of dirt they possibly can, put their 1,000 pounds down into it, and then come see you because they think it's funny. But there's another time that horses like to get down and roll, and that is when it's time to shed their winter coat. Every winter, to deal with the seasons, horses' coats grow a lot longer and thicker, and then in the summer, they obviously don't need all that, so they shed. But sometimes the shedding doesn't happen as quickly as they would like on a hot day, so you'll see them get down and roll and knock some of that extra winter coat off. For example, this is Chuko's best friend, Toby. He has not lost his winter coat. I don't know if you can see from there, and Chuko's coat is much slicker and shorter. And when we think about our winter coats, what are our winter coats? Can anybody think of what a winter coat might be for us? What? Excess weight. Absolutely, it could. Good for warmth. It could be self-doubt. It could be fear. Whatever it is, it's a separation sometimes between you and spirit. It's that coat that you don't need. And maybe you did need it because it comforted you somehow. It was a time of healing for you. But it's spring now. And just like the horse, we should know that it's time to get rid of that winter coat. And sometimes you need to roll in the dirt, metaphorically, to get that coat off. So how do we do that? What's one way that you could help take your coat off? Can anybody think of a way? Play with kids. That's a great one, isn't it? Just brings you back to that innocence and that purity. Hang out with good friends. Get with the herd, right? Hot tub. I like the way you think. Yes. You could spend some time journaling, spend some time in nature, meditate, things like that to get down to your core and the person you really are, who is connected with God and who is your higher self. And the thing about it, when you take these steps to get rid of that winter coat, it's only after you've gotten rid of it that you find out just how beautiful you actually are. Because I've seen it where a horse gets clipped or loses his winter coat, and he's a different color underneath than you even knew. And it's going to be a shinier coat and a shorter coat. So to find out how beautiful you are, you've got to do the work to take off of that winter coat. So as we gallop into our week, you see what I did there? Let's think about what our own winter coats may be and what it is that we can do to roll in the dirt to transition to spring and warmer weather and a new chapter in our lives. So in summary, let's see if you were listening to Chuko's lessons. What was the first lesson? Flies. Yes, don't worry about the flies. That's why you have a tail. Lesson number 2, what was that? Rain. Don't leave the herd just because it's raining. And lesson 3? I knew y'all would remember that one quickly. Sometimes a roll in the dirt is better than a roll in the hay. And on that note, amen.